This week on the Storycraft Society, we're going to see how I patched this hole in my Dragon's Tower, and then we're going to see the reveal of my entire Ruins of Thundertree set. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Storycraft Society. My name is Garmin, and over the last couple of weeks, we have been working on our Ruins of Thundertree set. That set consisted of statues for Area 10, a bunch of ruined houses, and finally, our culminating piece is the Dragon's Tower. And what we did last week was we built and constructed this thing. We got it to this point right here. Now, that video definitely covers how we connected the tower to this cottage. The cottage actually was part of a speed build that we did a couple of weeks ago on the channel. So I will link both of those videos in the description below. But this week, our task is different. This week, we have to get this hole patched. The adventure called for a hole. So now we got to come up with a cool way to get it looking good and ready for our game table, as well as do all the detailing and the painting that this piece is going to require to get it all finished up. Then after all that's done, we're going to be doing the final project reveal of our Ruins of Thundertree set. This is definitely the biggest set we've done so far on the channel, and it has me both excited and nervous to get into that. Without any further ado, let's get into finishing up this tower. So the first thing we need to talk about before we go into patching this hole is the only thing that I did off camera last week. I made this little tower cap here. All I did was I cut a circular disc out of XPS foam. I used some gargoyles from my bits box, as well as some little beads, just to make a decorative rooftop piece. I'm not in love with this, but it was one of those things where I tried 4 or 5 different things, and this just happened to be the best one of the group. Is it the best thing I've ever done? No, but it didn't do me any good to keep stressing about it, because again, this isn't a display piece. It's meant to be on my game table. This will do just fine. The next thing that we're going to talk about is patching this big monstrosity of a hole here. So after stressing and worrying about the best way to do this and talking it over with my better half, she actually was the one who came up with the idea that I could use some kind of cloth to cover this thing. Because dragons are intelligent creatures, they're not going to want a big hole in their lair, in their residence, in their shelter. Right? If it rains, the dragon doesn't want to get rained on all of their stuff inside, and green dragons are crazy smart. So what she suggested was maybe the dragon put some kind of a cloth flap over the top. It tacks in with nails or stakes or something into the roof. This does 2 things. One, when my players come up, they will see that the tower has some kind of patch that's been placed over the roof that will imply that something has gotten up there and done something to fix this hole. And 2, it will also let them know that whatever is up there probably has the ability to fly, because it's way up there and there's no signs of ladders or scaffolding or anything like that. This just kind of telegraphs a cool picture to my players, and for me, it's a much easier job to patch this. Definitely in the comments section below, if there's a better way that you can come up with to patch it, I would love to know other ideas of what other people were thinking to solve a problem like this. So let's get into it. So the materials we're going to need for this particular part of the project is going to be a bunch of toothpicks. Those are going to eventually be our stakes. We're going to need some fabric, just like we used for the tents in the old Al Well build. We're going to need some PVA glue, and we're going to need some watered down PVA glue. So we're going to start all this by taking our cloth here and cutting out a swatch of fabric. We need to make sure that it's the right size for the piece. So now we have the piece of cloth, canvas, whatever it would be, that the dragon could use to put in their patch, and that hangs well. Well, this side over here is going to have no tacks in it, and it can't be tacked into the stone. So I am gonna do just my tacks over here and maybe one right there. So now what we're gonna do is take our watered PVA, and we're just gonna put a little bit of it onto the piece. The watered down PVA will let the glue soak into the fibers of the cloth, and then once this dries, it's gonna dry just crazy hard. And then we're going to take our regular PVA glue, I'm just gonna get a little bit onto our finger here, and we're going to put this on because we know this is where our cloth is going to sit. So now we're gonna take our piece here, push that on. So now we're gonna take our toothpicks, and we're gonna cut the stakes that the dragon used to put it into the tower. I'm just gonna cut the end of the toothpick off here, so you end up with just this little piece. And then we're gonna take that, and we're going to find a spot and pin the cloth into the foam. And then once you have the hole pinned like that, put a little bit of PVA glue on the stake, push that in. So while our tarp finishes up drying, we're gonna go ahead and start putting our base coat onto this thing. What we're gonna be using is our Black Magic Craft base coat, which is just a 50-50 mixture of cheap acrylic, black craft paint, and matte Mod Podge. We're gonna put that over the entire piece because that's gonna give us strength. It's going to give us our black base coat. And also, I did leave the top off, and that's gonna make everything easier to paint. And then once they're both painted up, then I will glue this piece on. All right, so now that all this is dry, we're gonna move on to the painting. All of the base coating and kind of dry brush highlighting of this, I'm not gonna cover super in depth. If you need a little bit more of an explanation or kind of a tutorial on how I'm getting this particular paint job accomplished, you can check out just about any video on the channel where I did stonework, because I do this basic paint scheme for almost everything. So the first thing is we're gonna start with a charcoal gray to a medium gray to a dry brushing of a light gray. Let those colors mix on your palette or paper towel or whatever you're using, because what that'll do is that'll give you the most color variation, and it'll definitely let those colors look the most natural. All of the accent stonework is going to be a dark tan color, followed by a dry brushing of a khaki or a brighter, whiter tan color. This is going to give us our exaggerated highlights, and it's going to make the windows and accent pieces on this tower stand out a little more. The final thing is the dirt that's going to be all around the base. We're going to be going from a dark burnt umber up to a medium brown, and then a dry brushing of a honey brown. If that doesn't look quite right, I may add a tan dry brushing or a khaki dry brushing just to get that extra little pop of highlight, but those three should be just fine. So with that said, we're gonna go ahead and get this painted, and then we're just gonna snap into talking about the more exciting and interesting paint techniques and things that I'm gonna do on this piece. So now that we have all of our ground texture and stone painted, we need to move on to painting the more fine details or the spots that need more special attention on our piece. So we're gonna start with the roof because it's obviously got the most unique challenges in it. First things first, I did put it onto a base here. It doesn't matter what you're using. You could use a paint bottle if you wanted. I just wanted something big and sturdy because it'll make it easier than trying to hold it in some awkward way like this to try and do my painting. The next thing is I've kind of separated this piece down into 3 areas that really need my attention. The woodwork is not one of them because I'm just going to paint that the exact same way that I did the woodwork for our ruined building, so you can check that video out if you want. So the 3 specific areas that need my attention are the banding here, which I'm going to do as like black iron, the cloth, that's going to be a unique painting challenge, and then finally the cap here with my little gargoyles and all that stuff. So we're going to start with doing this iron banding. That's next. So to start on this black iron banding, we're going to start with some black paint, and then I'm also going to use a silver metallic, but I'm only going to use just a little tiny bit of it. Mix that up. For me, having just that little bit of metallic paint will help it translate to the eye as metal a little better. Obviously, iron doesn't have a sparkle to it. Again, the goal of this is to look good on my table, not to necessarily be perfect. So painting something black, even with the metallic flakes in it, has a tendency to make it look flat, not jumping out at you, not engaging. So then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually just take a pewter gray and I'm gonna run down the sharp edges of this banding. And then what that'll do, it will give nice definition, but will still read to the eye as black iron. So let's try to do that, and hopefully I don't mess it up. just little bit of edge just makes the corner of the piece show up just a little tiny bit more, and then from a distance it'll make the pieces of banding really just jump out. It's time to move on to the cloth, which we're going to be doing in 3 colors. We're going to do a country twill, which is just a khaki color. We're going to move on to a dry brushing of an antique white, and then we're going to wash that all down with a Seraphim sepia. It could be any sepia wash, or you could just take like a honey brown paint and really water it down. But what it's going to do is make this look like it's weathered and old. The one thing I will say is if this doesn't work, I may go to a brown wash over top of it also, or maybe just spot hit some places in brown to make it feel grimier and dirtier. Alright, with that done, we are left with this. I did not have to break out the brown wash. The one thing that I did not do on camera is I painted out all of the pegs just in a brown. I made sure to use really thin paint so that I got some color variation from the color of the pegs underneath. So, the final thing that we have to do up on this roof is this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it out so that both the accents and the gargoyles are painted out in the same bronze that I used when I did my statue from Area 10 build. So if you want to see that in more detail, definitely check that video out. I will link that in the description below. And then I will end up painting out the cap just to look like regular stone, trying to make it match the tower stone here as best as I can. All right, so with that part of the painting process finished, we have our little statues up on top of our roof cap, and we are ready to move on to the next stage of painting. So now we're moving back to the body of the building. So what I would like to do is distress this piece a little bit and make the stone look like it's a little bit more weathered. So the way that I'm gonna do that is with 2 different types of washes, a brown wash and a green wash. So the green wash is gonna be like mold that's kind of growing in areas, any place that would hold water. So for example, water would run down off of the stonework here and it'll lay in this area here. Then brown wash is going to be where major amounts of water would drip. For example, any place under like this windowsill, this area would kind of just constantly have water dripping down from it. So this is going to get a kind of triangular dark brown wash. So with our little painting accents done, it is now the exciting and terrifying time where we are going to put that guy on there permanently. All right, we are finally coming into the home stretch for this piece. We only have one more step, and that's our flock. So our flocks are going to come in 2 different varieties. The first one is going to be what we're going to be doing to simulate moss, and that's using a fine turf by Woodland Scenics, the burnt grass. And that's going to go anywhere where moss would grow. So that's going to be in certain places around on the woodwork. I might put a little bit up on the roof as well. The second type of flock we're going to do is our blended turf grass flock. This is also made by Woodland Scenics. It's a product called Green Blend Blended Turf. And then that is going to get mixed up into a paste. Well, I guess both of these are going to get mixed up into a paste, but this one's going to be mixed into a bit of a thicker paste. And then that's going to go all over our base to make kind of patchy, rough grass. I'm also going to kind of put it on either side here to make it look like there's a little bit of a pathway going up to the front of this as well.
All right, our Dragon's Tower is looking good, so you know what that means. It is now time to get to the glamour shots for this project. Let's see the ruins of Thundertree. All right, and there we have our final set. Boy, I'm so pleased with how this looks. It's so functional for a game, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons or wargaming or whatever. You have space to play, but it still looks good, and your players are gonna be excited to get through a set like this. I know mine surely will. But that's gonna wrap it for this series. If you enjoyed this content, definitely leave me a like down below, leave me a comment, and let me know what your favorite part of this set is. I put a lot of work into it, and it would mean a lot to me to hear what you like about it, and also maybe some things that you do differently. What didn't I add that you would? That would be great to know. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do that. That goes a long way to helping the channel, as well as ringing the notification bell to know when our videos go live every Thursday. But other than that, I've got nothing else to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't watched all the old videos, go back and check those out. But for this series, I'm signing off. We'll see you next time.